Here we go, trying to get my girl on.
Hello, Dr. Helen.
Hello. There we
There
go.
you go. We're having technical difficulties still, but we're going to figure this out one day.
One day.
One day. Well, it's still good. I mean, I can say it's still good to see you, Dr. Helen.
Well, it's good to hear your voice. I can't say it's good to see you because I still can't see you, but it's always good to hear your voice.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, we will sort this out eventually, so we're not having this challenge consistently as we seem to be having. I'm just adjusting my camera here. Well, here we are, riffing with Black, Dr. Prince and Dr. Helm, rocking it, socking it, doing what we need to do. And I'm kind of excited about our topics today. Looking
Good
at our
one.
list, we got about four, and then we got some good old side eyes that we need to add to the mix. Serious side eyes. I'm a little I'm upset, but anyhow.
Oh,
So we
you're
got
upset. I want to hear more about why you're upset.
yeah okay. So well we got hazing. We wanted to talk about that last time, but
Yeah.
we're gonna start with it this time. And then you really shared, I thought was really thoughtful article, but it was a few topics in there. One of them had to do with the highest cause of death amongst Black men, which is suicide.
Yes.
Touchy topic, but a necessary one, clearly.
Mm.
Next one was the new crack era. So social media. I was like, we just when we finished the last crack, then we got a new crack.
Well,
Um,
and of course, then there's the sex toy that got thrown on the WNBA basketball court.
well, that was my other side eye.
That's a big side eye. Oh,
I'm like, that's just all kinds of wrong. And then from toughness, I think this general theme of around our identities is going from toughness to wholeness. And I want to touch on that. And then, yeah, definitely our side eye is Trump going to DC with the National Guard and the WNBA, and we'll call it a dildo gate.
all right. Where we want to start?
Let's start with hazing. Let's start with hazing because that's always a touchy, tough topic. Now, let everyone know: are you part of a sorority or anything like that?
I am.
Mm-hmm. Let's hear about
Mm-hmm.
that, Missy.
Well, so I am part of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a pledged grad chapter. And what appealed to me was sort of the community service aspect of the organization. And, I thought about it at undergrad, went through a little pre-pledging there, and I really wanted to remain focused so I could go on and, get a doctorate and be a psychologist. And I was afraid my grades would fall. But the
Okay.
urge to do it and to be a part of that organization didn't end. And so I did it in grad school. What's interesting about reading about hazing, it's not just a Black thing,
Nope. Shall not.
it's a Greek thing.
Yep.
And what's interesting is when you think about hazing, if you're a fully functioning adult, you're going to think hazing is like, well, why would you do that? Right.
Yep. Right.
But then if you think about the people who are in that process, they're 19 and 20. And as a parent, right, if my daughter or sons were like, yeah, most kids aren't going to tell their parents they're being hazed, I would have a problem with that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes, yes.
It's a tough topic for me because I went to Prairie View A&M University, uh,
Uh-huh.
a school of the first class here in the state of Texas. And I when I was a first year student or freshman, it was the last year of a lot of those rules they had in about hazing and how to prevent some of the negative aspects of it. So I still got to see all the old school stuff that you typically see or hear about
Me
around
too.
Greeks and sorority. And so imagine that, but on with the Black Greek organizations, right, being much larger. So you had like I don't even know what the right name is, but you had a class of 40 women who were just deltas, and
Yeah.
40 women who were AKAs, and 30 dudes who were kappas or
Yeah.
alphas. And the story I like to talk about this because this is hazing related. Is there
Okay.
was a brother who came to our dorm room. This is my freshman year. Came to the dorm room with a bag, like a regular old garbage, not garbage bag, but a sack, like a paper one. And it
Okay.
was greasy all over. And he says, "Hey, y'all, can y'all," it's like at 10 o'clock at night. "Hey, y'all, can y'all help me out? I'm trying to sell these links." And we're like, "Well, we broker than the joke around here. We ain't got no money." And he's like, "Oh, man, if I don't sell these links, man, I'm gonna they gonna beat me." We're like, "I'm sorry, we broke," but we kind of didn't believe him either. On the
Yeah.
yard the next day, he had two black eyes, looking sad as I don't know what. And I'm like, that's the kind of stuff that I was like, I don't want to be part of none of that kind of nonsense.
So you didn't even consider it because of what you saw.
Well, now mind you, my grandmother was a Delta, my grandfather is a Kappa, so
Yeah.
it's in the DNA.
Yeah.
But being at Prairie View, I just didn't see it as a great option, which is funny because my ex-wife is AKA. My
Mhm.
son recently he joined Alphas, so
Uh-huh.
it's still in the family. Matter of fact, my daughter is considered. I shouldn't even say that, but the point is, it's in the family. I
Yeah.
just haven't been very
And
receptive to it.
And I can still see, like, for those people who are listening who may not know, with Black Greek letter organizations, they were formed in, let's say the early 1900s because Black people who went to college were not allowed to be members of white organizations. And the
Mhm.
sort of the ideas of each of these organizations is to give back to the community, right?
Mhm.
They are integral part of typically middle class college Black culture, and then the commitment you make to the organization is lifelong. It sort of doesn't
Yeah,
end after college,
supposed to
right?
be. Supposed.
Yes, supposedly. And these organizations do a lot of good, but
Yes.
there can be a lot of damage,
Hmm.
right? And when you read all these stories about and essentially young adults being killed,
Yes.
um, going through abusive situations,
Hmm.
team members getting punched. I just read about a young man who got punched in the chest and he died. And then, of course, they tried to cover it up. It is tragic. And should you have to risk your life to be a member of any organization and then, turn around and call somebody, brother or sister? I
Oh,
don't know.
it's well for me it's nonsensical. And so when my son went through it, first I think he was maybe a little nervous because he know how my opinions, we all have them, but he knew my opinion about the fraternities and sororities, and we all had stories of alcohol abuse and physical abuse and all those kinds of things. And the thing that made this at least more digestible for me, because I wanted to support him regardless. That my
Sure.
opinions are kind of secondary or tertiary. What was more important is how do I support him? But when he was kind of telling me about it, and even his mother, when she came to me and said, "Well, I know a lot of the brothers who are alphas, they're making a commitment to make sure their hazing is not a problem. Yes, they still have to study and do all these
Yes.
different kind of things, but the hazing component was something that I was reassured was a diminished part of the experience, if not at all." And so that made it better for me. But the
Yes.
brotherhood and the connecting, the lifelong friendships, and I mean, these are guys who were friends before they were even
Yeah.
joined the organization, and that's how for me it should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
hazing is a big issue, especially around alcohol.
Yeah, and it's again, we're talking about it in a Black Greek context, but there are just as many stories with white Greek letter organizations where, they force someone to drink themselves to death. And you might think, well, this other person's an adult. Why don't they just say no? But we all can understand the aspects of peer pressure, especially on young adults,
Hmm.
right? And then we have a situation, and this might kind of take us in a little bit to our next topic where people compare themselves to one another, and then people don't want to risk losing face by dropping out of, what do they call it, rushing week? Is it
Yeah,
rushing week?
breast week or whatever. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then some of these hazing rituals are about humiliation and how
Yes.
tough you can be and how much you can stand. And, what are we teaching people about that? And then
Well,
we just keep passing it on and passing it on. And, it's concerning. It really is. You shouldn't send your kid off to college and they not come back because they wanted to pledge.
right, right. Because I talked with some men and women who are part of the organizations, and what I hear is the challenge that oftentimes, since they experienced it, whatever
Yeah.
degree of hazing it may be, maybe it was like my grandmother used to tell a story about how she had to walk around town with some toilet coming from under her dress, like she just came out the bathroom, and walk around campus.
Yeah.
These kinds of humiliating kind of experiences somehow is supposed to build some kind of emotional toughness or
Yeah.
commitment, demonstrating commitment to the organization. And for me, I'm like, there's all ways of there's a lot of less unhealthy ways to demonstrate
Yeah.
commitment and determination and grit or whatever it is that you're or loyalty is another thing, right? There's other ways of doing that don't necessarily have to cause the kind of harm that I think many of us are worried about.
Yep. And I agree because these organizations are large. And
Hmm.
so, national doesn't always know what, local chapters are doing. And you always get people, right, who are on a power trip who want to
Yeah.
make other people suffer, and people end up getting hurt or people end up getting killed.
Right. And this is the challenge. The hazing that we're talking about is not just at the college level. You're seeing this in sports, at the high
Yeah.
school level. You're seeing this in the military. And the themes are the same around
Yeah.
loyalty and commitment and demonstrating your fortitude,
Yeah.
all these themes. And they all have the same kinds of problems,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to alcohol, different levels. But for me, that makes the case for why this is a problem. It's not just the fraternities and sororities; it's sports. It's
Yeah.
and the things they come up with. I'm like, oh, that wasn't even creative. But it's like, I mean, we're talking about sexual abuse or sexual favors. I mean, just the most asinine, in my opinion, asinine things to get people to do. And like you said, it's about control and power over people who are
Yeah.
19, 20, 18.
Yep.
And I'm not saying they're not. I mean, first of all, they're adults, and so they have to be held responsible. But
Hmm.
this is oftentimes under the supervision of another party member who's been part of the organization much longer. So it's not even just
And why do we have to engage in abuse to prove something?
right, right.
And what is it that you've proved? What have you demonstrated by abusing other people, right? So, there are in any organization, there are always, people who lend themselves more toward positivity,
Hmm.
that there are other elements, but it's worrisome when you read the accounts of families who send their kids off to college and they never come home, right, because they engaged in hazing rituals,
Right.
for something that's supposed to be fun and meaningful for the college experience, and they don't come home. That's devastating.
It's
That is
devastating. It's devastating, but this is the challenge, I think, Dr. Helm. For a vast majority of people, they do come home, right?
true.
For a vast majority, so when those 40 or whatever number of people get on stage and they're doing the steps and everyone's giving them accolades, right?
Yeah.
Somehow all of that makes it worth it, right? And
Yeah.
so what it sounds like, well, someone who may disagree with us is going to sound like, well, they're just party poopers. They really don't know what's really about. Nice reminder, you're in a sorority. I'm around Greek life in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Uh, I think at least what I'm suggesting, I think I hear you saying too, is that there's a way of really honoring what fraternities and sororities are all about. I mean, what the real power is there that's invaluable and irreplaceable
Yeah.
that you can do that doesn't require humiliating people. And I think
Yeah.
that's the fundamental thing.
And if you think about it for, Black students at predominantly white institutions, PWIs, right? Sometimes Black Greek life, whether you're in it or not, is attractive as a retention vehicle, right?
Yes.
Helps you
Yes.
feel a part of something.
Yeah.
And that's what organizations are supposed to do. They help you, you know, become a part of something, feel a part of something.
Well, hey, before we get to another topic, because I feel it's kind of transition maybe to another subject, I forgot to do our grounding card.
Our part. Okay. Okay.
So I'm gonna do a real easy one for you.
All right.
Uh, someone who loved me into being is someone who loved me into being is blank.
Someone who loved me into being. Well, quite literally, my parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's how we all got here, right?
Right.
Loved me into being physically, but also emotionally and psychologically would be my parents, Luke and Bev. Hmm.
Looking bad, making stuff happen.
Luke and
I mean, I think it's obvious. I mean, it's not always obvious because sometimes our relationship with our parents is not quite what we hope it's going to be. But I will mention my mother, and I'll mention her because actually I just put a blog out about this earlier. One of the last conversations I had with my mother, because she loved me very much into being, but we had a rough relationship in the end. She had diabetes and a lot of health issues,
Yeah.
to the point where she wasn't conscious a lot of the time. But there's this thing called paradoxical lucidity. And I don't know if you've heard of this, but this is a experience oftentimes people who have diabetes or other illnesses, maybe a
Yeah, and
few days.
we bonded on this. This is how we met, right? Because my
Yeah,
dad was diabetic too. Yes.
yeah. And so a few weeks I think before she had passed away, she had this moment of lucidity, and she's like, "Baby, I just want you to know, I know I can be difficult. I know that this is not easy having to kind of take care of me, but I want you to know how much I appreciate you and everything you've done for me, and how much I love you." And I'll be honest, that was the hardest thing, but it was so important for her to say those things to me at that time
Yeah.
because it was hard. It was hard. It was difficult. And I say that even though it was the end of her life or near the end of her life, all the things like that were the kinds of things that made me the person I think I am as a person. Her demonstrating
Yeah.
that love and affection and
Yeah.
giving me guidance and hope. And so even in that space, it was like, oh, I didn't know it at the time, but I really needed to hear that from her. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, yeah,
I think
definitely.
what's powerful about this question, especially like my parents are no longer living, right? Your mom is no longer living. And I think that, I'm reading all these articles. This is not one of our topics today, so I'm going to just slip it in there for a second about a lot of people who are estranged from their parents for many different reasons. And I was not estranged. Like my mom and I had some battles, right, as an adolescent and as a young person, but I really came to appreciate all that they taught me. So they really did love me into being.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious about people who are estranged from their parents, and many people have good reasons. Um, but I think we should talk about that, at a subsequent podcast, because I think that more and more people are estranged from their parents, and it has
Hmm.
a psychological impact. So that's not our topic for today, but I think that we should kind of add that. If you don't feel like you are loved into being by your parents, I'm curious to hear what people have to say about that.
Let's definitely put it because I'm estranged from my father, so I think it'll be a good topic for it. But I do
Okay.
also want to recognize Bria Nicole Wolf on here. She said, "I didn't mean to stay this long, but I'm stuck. I'm sucked in. Very interesting. So thank you for being with us.
Well, thanks for
Appreciate
being
it."
so there. We appreciate it.
Well, I want to get into the article that we read that cover these topics, and maybe we should start with the heavy one first. That it's the suicide is the third highest cause of death of Black men, and for some reason, I knew that but didn't know that. What was your reaction when you learned that?
So I wasn't surprised because the suicide rates of Black men have been increasing. I would love to see the data because, and this is sort of anecdotal, but oftentimes the way Black men commit suicide is through self-destruction, not necessarily direct means sometimes, right? But I think that in the Black community especially, there's not a language for Black men around, and Black women too, but we're focusing on Black men for right now, around depression, around anxiety, around mental health. And when you are a Black man, you're perceived as physically threatening and a danger. Like that's just in the DNA of the United States of America, right? And I think that always being on guard, always knowing that there's a negative perception of you in society, even very healthy Black men, it's got to weigh on you,
Right.
right? Every time you walk down the street, somebody grab their purse or get an elevator and giving you side eye, the damaging effects, like Black folks, we die even of similar when they control for education and control for health issues, we die younger. And I think some of that is the institutional racism, right, that that you're experiencing. And I do think that that contributes to the society, sort of the suicidal rates of Black men not being able to find jobs, right? Incarceration rates. I mean, all that's depressing shit.
Well, I mean, it's depressing, and I mean, I think about I'm raising I mean, not raising, but I'm trying to nurture a Black son, and I know you have your own kids,
Two, they're
and
only 11, but yes.
yeah, but it's a struggle because I remember there was a video some time ago about this guy, the brother. he was having this conversation with his son, and basically was saying, my son kind of act like a punk. And let me make sense of this first for you. Because his experience growing up was a lot of fighting. In
Yeah,
his particular neighborhood, there was gangs, there was violence, and so the best way you could survive those circumstances was learning how to fight and to have at least have a hard exterior. That's helped you get through life. But then he
yeah,
grew up, he went to school, he got a job, and he curated a life for his son and his family where they didn't have that kind of thing around. And so on some level, he's like, why am I surprised my son the way he is? Because I intentionally wanted him to have a life that wasn't like mine, that
yeah,
wasn't where it was violence around and all kind of thing. And so here I am criticizing him for being soft, when in truth, I curated the life that I wanted him to have. And
yeah,
so I need to find a way of respecting that. And at the same time, and so I say that only to say is, I mean, I was kind of a suburban person, but still had a lot of violence around for different reasons.
yeah,
And so there's this kind of, what's the kind of parent I need? What kind of dad do I need to be to this son who I don't want to curate the life I had, but
yeah,
he's curating another life. Like I played sports. That was my way of staying out of trouble. My
sure.
son's doing D&D and playing computer games. And
Well, right.
it's
And
different.
I think that boys are vulnerable, right?
Mm,
Even so, the less social interactions they have, many report feeling socially isolated, which leads to depression rates, which leads to suicidality.
mm,
And I worry about my sons a lot, right? Because I just think that not only how they're positioned in society, but they like video games, right?
right.
And they don't talk a lot. Right
Um,
there, and I just worry as they get older, are they going to experience that social isolation, that sort of estrangement from connections from others, which a lot of Gen Zers are experiencing?
I mean, Gen Z, I mean, I think it's a big challenge since post pandemic.
Yeah,
And even before that, I mean, it was a big problem. But our inability to connect in meaningful ways, our
yeah,
challenges of developing those soft or what they call power skills, whether it be at work or in our relationships, I think is a detriment to all of us. And so then when you think about suicide, so we've
yeah,
already talked about the social challenges, we talked about the disconnection we're experiencing, and then on top of that, we got racism and what it means to be a man in this society. I
yeah.
mean, it's not surprising to hear it. Suicide is the third leading cause of death amongst Black men.
Well, and can I add, so in this sort of, you talk about this father calling his son soft, right? And and I'll just sort of the Black community in general, we don't like to be soft, right? Like we have ways of protecting ourselves against racism, and a lot of that is to be hard.
Yeah,
But then, because this is my area, so I got to bring it up. But when you put people then together in a couples relationship, it's hard to relate to one another because the softness that society and your parents and your families have told you that you cannot have for both Black
exactly.
men and Black women, you put people together in a relationship, and this is a straight relationship or any relationship, and there's not the softness because we've been told we're not supposed to be soft. So part of my clinical practice when I work with Black couples and African American individuals a lot of times is to get them in touch with the vulnerability and to teach people it's okay, one, not to be okay, but two, to name it and to ask for the help that you need,
Right.
because we're often socialized, nah, you gotta keep don't put your business in the street, and you better suck it up, right? And that can be so detrimental.
Well, there's so much shame, right? Whether it be about poverty, whether it be about a level of education, some of the things that some of us got into because of,
Yeah,
I mean, there's all kinds of illegal behaviors that folks have gotten into. And so you're told, don't tell anyone our business because it's not, one, it's none of their business. And two, under that is there's some shame, right?
yeah,
They'll try to have some pride and say, "Hey, your family is the best, this and that," and there's plenty to be proud of it. But oftentimes there's shame in there that's not talked about. And
yeah.
my concern is that there'll be moments of softness, but they're fleeting.
Well, they're fleeting, or they're dismissed, or they're surrounded in gender tropes that don't suit
Yes.
us. Act like a man, be hard. Even in hazing, the whole idea is to demonstrate how hard you are,
Yeah.
right? In softness, nobody likes to be vulnerable,
No.
right? And there's real strength in being vulnerable, but we are not taught the skills to do that well. and it is looked down upon. So when you are feeling suicidal or depressed, you tell yourself, something's wrong with me. I'm not supposed to feel this way. I'm ashamed, so I'm not going to tell anyone. Therefore, suicidality increases.
So can I bring up the TV show Insecure? Remember,
Okay,
did you watch
I don't, I'm
Insecure?
a big TV watcher, so I don't, tell me about it.
Okay, Insecure started off with the main character, Issa Rae, and her boyfriend, who was unemployed, had been unemployed for many, many months, and she was very disappointed in his behavior. The truth of the matter is, I think they wrote the character to be slightly depressed, who was having difficulty with getting his life moving in the right direction. And she ended up cheating on him, and they broke up as a result. So you haven't seen Insecure? That's what the first season's more or less
I've
about.
heard amazing things about it.
Great show, very funny. It's really about Issa Rae and her kind of journey, but this is part
Yeah,
of the storyline. But I remember one of my biggest frustrations was here's his brother in pain. And it was like it was Team Issa versus Team whatever his name was. And the lack of sympathy for his circumstance was
yeah,
mind boggling to me. And I'm like, I mean, first of all, why does it have to be have team anybody? Let's team together.
right.
Let's move together.
Team Team us.
And but it was frustrating because I think that plays out in a lot of relationships in general, particularly black relationships, where it's like my job as a woman is to be hold you accountable and be tough with you because if I'm soft with you, you ain't gonna get up and do what you need to do and handle your business.
Mhm.
It kind of plays. I don't know. I think about just how it plays out, not just in our kind of work relationships, but also in our personal dating or main relationships.
But then it needs to be reworked, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to have certain skills. First of all, you have to believe that softness and vulnerability is okay and an inherent part of being human, right? So if we
Hmm.
accept that part of the human experience is having vulnerabilities or insecurities or those things, right? To not to pretend they don't exist, but
Hmm.
to process those things and then to create spaces and not to pump your card deck, but this isn't somewhat your card deck is about building connection, you
Hmm.
know, not just superficial connection, deeper
Right.
connection, which really actually protects against suicidality, right?
It,
When
it,
you feel part of something and connected to other people, depression rates go down, people have better sense of identity and well-being. And I just don't know if we often have the skill set to reach out to one another, even when you know somebody is hurting,
right.
and just it's okay that you're hurting. I'm here for you.
Right. And what you made me think about is that I know you've heard this phrase before where you're in a relationship, whether it be romantic or otherwise, and you make deposits in that relationship. One
That's
of
right.
those ways you make deposits is spending time getting to know each other and listening and having not just a breadth of understanding, but a depth of understanding. And every
Yep.
time you take the time to listen and curate time and energy into the relationship, there is a huge, hopefully you've stored up enough savings in that account that when it's time to make a withdrawal, like when
Right.
you're feeling depressed or anxious, you can go to that person and make that withdrawal because I need you now.
Yep.
And absent of that, of feeling like you've had that depth of experience, it makes
Yep.
it even harder to go to them to get relief when you're having challenges in life.
Well, you are obviously the man on the podcast, right? But a lot of times, and we talked about this a little bit last week, from what I've been able to observe, a lot of times men in their relationships with other men, right,
Mm,
often drill down into the emotional.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
about, sometimes, right? But oftentimes, like that's not allowed. Maybe it goes against man culture, whatever that is, right? To be vulnerable with your friends. And so back to our last topic. So oftentimes, what was it? Man keeping? What was it? Was it man keeping?
yes, man keeping, yes.
But that's again to reach out and to initiate with friends to be more emotionally vulnerable. That's a skill set and it is undervalued. And so when, in this case, when black men feel suicidal, I wonder if they feel deeply alone.
Oh, I would say absolutely yes.
Yeah.
Because if I have this somewhat superficial relationship with my partner, maybe not so great relationship with my family, I'm going around looking and seeking depth where there is none. And it makes you wonder, why am I even here?
Why am I here? When I'm not valued in society, I'm not valued. And when Black men start disappearing, something huge is lost.
Right. Well, I mean, that was one of the themes in that movie with Ice Cube and all them at not Straight Outta Compton, but the first one movie that Ice Cube was in a long time ago with John. I can't
Friday?
remember. Say again?
Friday?
No, not the comedy. The one in Compton where they're living in the hood, living that life. And the only reason I bring that up because I think the level of violence that we experience, the isolation that we experience,
Yeah.
is reflected in a lot of the things that we see that's supposedly part of urban Black culture.
Yeah.
When it's actually just a reflection of our isolation and disconnection from one another at times.
Boys in the Hood.
Yeah, boys and hood. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Boys in the Hood. Yeah. So, so even when something isn't happening directly to you, when it's happening to people who look like you,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
happening to you.
Yes. Yes. I
Yes.
mean, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing worse when you have to get accustomed to losing people on a regular basis in your own community. I
Yeah.
mean, even like I think an example of that is when we lose hip hop artists, whether it's a regional thing or national thing, international. Anyone who
Yeah.
dies, with was one of the guys from Migos, when the Nipsey Hussle was killed in L.A. I mean, these are artists that we kind of collectively feel a sense of loss. And as you know, when there is a murder or if there's a suicide, there's
Yeah.
oftentimes an escalation, even if
Yeah.
it's temporary,
Yeah.
because it taps into people's sense of existential moments or whatever it may be. And so, so even those experiences can sometimes be connected to the experiences that other people have as well.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that we're going to have to go back and revisit
Yes,
that one.
we're gonna have to revisit. Let's talk on one more thing, and then we might have then we might transition to the side eye.
Okay.
But I thought a good one would be the new crack era, social media, and the I can't even say the word sensitization of Black trauma.
Okay. Talk a little bit about it.
Well, I guess the way I read the article is that there's two things that are going on. There's when basically trauma that happens online on social media, it becomes kind of a way of attracting people's attention, right? And so it's almost there for entertainment. But there's the trauma that we're actually experiencing in these moments, so it kind of gets, I think, ignored. But there's an addictive component to it, right? Where people are
Yeah.
drawn to it and they're looking towards it and they're going. And then if you're, I don't know what your experience is like, but if I go on TikTok, Instagram, and I start off with, let's say, an arrest or a fight or whatever event there may be, it connects me to all the other ones that are happening in that
It's like
area.
a rabbit hole,
Yes.
right? And we first, even going back, I first noticed this during 9/11 when they kept replaying and replaying and replaying, and you kept watching and watching. And, they did the same thing during the pandemic. And that much trauma that you're taking in is damaging. Like, there's a way to be aware. Here, okay, so here's what I did. Bad me, okay? Slap my own hand. Speaking of this, right? So this was a couple weeks ago, and I was on TikTok. And being a clinician and dealing with people's pain, I don't find people's pain entertainment,
Right.
right? So I don't tend to watch dramas and that kind of stuff because then I'm emotionally resonating with the character. So I'm going through TikTok and my dog videos, which make me smile. And honor walk comes up. Have you heard of an honor walk?
Uh-uh.
Okay, so an honor walk is when somebody who they haven't passed away, their body is still alive, but they're brain dead, and
Okay.
they walk the hospital bed, and everybody lines the hallways, the family, the medical personnel, and they kind of honor the person and their family because they're basically dead. Their body's alive. They're about to donate their organs, and it's called an honor walk. This is at like 9:30 at night, and now I'm like pulling honor walks, and I said to myself, "What are you doing, Kathy? What are you doing?" Because of course, then I'm up and I'm thinking about the families and how tragic that is to watch your loved one, and so I think that society is set up in some ways. We're taking it in, and we're taking in all these things, and then there's no rest for the weary. There's a low level of anxiety and depression because of all of the negativity that we have access to at all times, and it's traumatizing.
Well, I almost hear about this kind of like how they talk about food. They call it food porn, right? And what people do is they watch it. And it's not just the watching it; it's the taking what you learn and saw and see on television or video, and then go do it, which contributes to being obese and obsessive eating compulsions. And it kind of all goes together. The only reason I mention that because I feel like that may apply to
Yeah,
watching all this trauma, right? And so you walk away after. I mean, these are things that we're supposed to only see in small doses, and now
yeah,
we're watching it, and it does make me wonder if there's a tendency to be a little not immune, but maybe a little too thick-skinned about these experiences and watching other people's experiences. I do wonder if it
yeah.
dehumanizes us a little bit.
Well, because it encourages apathy, right? So
Yeah.
on the because then you get numbed out to it, and should we be numbed out to other people's pain? I don't know if we should.
And it's a funny balance because I remember back in high school, when I get my little heart, toe up and stuff, because I thought I was a little ugly duckling, and the girls didn't like me, so I go listen to some Prince songs, that would kind of affirm how I was feeling, and in
Which
the moment,
song are you listening to?
what songs? For
Which
oh
song? Because
oh,
Prince,
there was
but he could be nasty. So which one?
I
Then
mean,
high.
it wasn't nasty ones. It was more like I'm lonely and no one loves me and that kind of
You mean
stuff.
the one listening to Soft and Wet?
I mean, I
Dark.
did. I did that before and after, but I had to get my little like, oh, she don't she don't love me no more and all that kind of stuff, and and you get your little dose and then you move on. And so
Yeah.
I would say that because maybe for some of these people, there's a kind of like it resonates because it reminds them of something that's important to them. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about like sometimes hours of people just being sucked into watching these videos about
Yep.
all this traumatic stuff.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I don't want to minimize people sometimes with the music or film finding ways of feeling some sense of solace by seeing some things that are important to them. Like I'm not the
Yeah.
only one, but then there's a limit to that as well.
Yeah. You have to have boundaries around that stuff.
Well, hey, I want us to transition to side eye here in a second, but I have
Okay.
our next card,
Okay.
um, and this is one of the engagement cards. This one is the qualities that make me unique are blank. The qualities that make me unique are blank.
Okay.
Uh,
I first last time, so it's up to you.
qualities that make me unique is um, I like to think I
Yeah.
have a unique sense of humor. In a way that sometimes on occasion can be a little distracting, but and sometimes it's out of nervousness. But humor to me, for me, is not about whether I'm funny or not, because sometimes I'm just not. It's about seeing the world in a unique way, seeing those little curvatures in life and people and circumstances that you're like, oh, look at that, that's funny, you know. And so I always feel like that's a quality. And I'll be honest, I was a kid who moved around a lot, and so being humorous was a way of connecting with people. It
Yeah.
also kept me out of some fights because if I could Jones them better than they Jones me,
Uh,
fight avoided or encouraged.
when you developed your advanced verbal skills so you could refrain from getting your ass kicked.
You're from getting my ass kicked.
Like,
That's
I'm gonna make the
exactly.
bully laugh and then I'm gonna run.
And let me tell this one joke. Bye bye.
Okay.
How about you? What's the quality which you unique?
Um, so I think I have a passion for what I do, right? So
Mm,
I pour my passion into my therapeutic work, my teaching work, and I think I'm authentic. And I
mm,
think the great thing about learning to be authentically yourself and being comfortable in your own skin, you attract those people to you. And so my friend group are full of very authentic, funny people, very smart. And so I think the energy that I put into my friendships and my relationships comes back to me.
mm.
And I think that one of the things that makes me unique is I can recognize how important making and keeping these emotional connections are.
Yeah, yeah. I like that about you. It's definitely a quality I see. So yeah. Well,
Thank
cool. That's
you.
great to hear. That's great to hear. Well, let's get to our side eye. The two. Which one you want to do? WNBA or the DC nonsense?
So we only have a little bit of time, so I definitely want to do the WNBA. So KP sent me this article about a sex toy being thrown, and this has happened in multiple cases on the court during the time that the WNBA are playing. And at first, I was like, "Oh, that's kind of funny. It's a joke." And then when you realize it's actually not, and that it's happening, like the women's basketball in particular are being targeted because we devalue women's sports, even
Mm-hmm.
though are high-powered athlete, like any high-powered athlete who have honed their craft,
Hmm.
and sort of throwing the sex toy is making fun of women's sports. So at first I was like, that's kind of funny. But then when you realize it's not a one-time thing, it's a pattern and it's meant to distract and it's meant to demean, then I wasn't okay with that. Now it's not
Yeah,
funny anymore.
yeah, and I think maybe there was a point that could have been funny. You know,
Yeah.
I'm trying to make space for the ridiculousness of the circumstance, right?
Yeah.
But when, like you said, when it becomes a pattern, when
Yeah.
people start using means to basically be mean spirited towards the NBA, it's almost like there's like this jealousy because the WNBA's popularity has increased significantly over the last couple of years.
And good
Probably
for them.
because
They worked hard for that.
yes, they worked hard for it, and there's a handful of women superstars who are getting credit for this movement, and it's. I mean, it's not going to make people not watch the WNBA. If anything, it might get people to watch it. But to
How
me,
they
it's on the
sneak that in there though? Like
say again.
how do you sneak you put it in your pocket, you stick it in your purse, and then when it comes time, like didn't everybody see you throw that thing out there?
I mean, they did see you, but all I'm thinking about is you know how they search your purse and your bags when you come into the stadium. First of all, who was holding it? Was it me or was it you? And how
It's
big was
like,
it? And ma'am, sir, what do you plan on using that for while you're here
yeah.
at a wonderful city?
So you mean when they searched you they didn't come up with that? Must not be. And
It was.
then when you threw it on the court about the people around you, didn't they say something to you?
I mean, I had it in my pocket the whole time, and no one said anything, so I thought it was okay.
This is okay, way off topic, but this is like I just read an article about people sneaking turtles try on planes by sticking it in around their genitalia in their underwear and getting caught with the turtle in your pants. Like, what are we doing, and why are we doing it?
First of all, the level of creativity and risk taking that people are willing to take.
Is that creative?
Like, okay, let's go back to the dildo. Someone was at home. Maybe it was sitting in their car. Maybe it was in a closet, in a drawer somewhere. But they said, you know what? I don't need this dildo anymore. I'm going to go to this basketball game and throw it out into the middle of the court because I'm,
Oh, dude,
I'm
that's
fit
how
to be
somebody get
tackled.
rid of old. So
I'm
instead of
fit to be tackled.
recycling,
Just come. I mean, is that how I'm gonna communicate my frustration?
oh,
I mean, if they start doing it at soccer games, that's gonna be kind of funny. Because like, sir, why are you throwing these out in the soccer game? Now we gotta kick it around.
of course, we had to have fun with this side eye,
I
but
mean, but
in
it's
all
ridiculous.
seriousness, making fun of women's sports is a no go. No.
It's a no go. And to be honest, I'm making more fun of the people who had the wherewithal to even go through all this to
Yes.
demonstrate their discontent. I mean, is this what we call cancel culture? Trying to cancel women's sports?
It's been canceled. Shoot.
Ah, crazy, insane. Well, hey, that's our side. We can leave the DC thing for next time because it ain't going nowhere. And
Right.
all I gotta say is someone threw a sandwich at a federal officer and now he's being charged. But we'll talk about that next time. Uh,
Yes.
I got our last card, our celebration card.
Okay.
I know it's kind of going over a little bit, but we can stick this in. It's a way I stay engaged today. A way I stayed engaged today was blank.
So of course we know I'm Generation X, so I still call people on the phone. So the way I stay engaged today is I will sometimes text, but I will sometimes call people and have a connection that way. So that's how I stay engaged.
Yeah, definitely. Old people love to get on the phone, Dr. Hill. They just
What'd
want
you
to
say?
talk.
You
Huh?
call me old?
Hey girl, I just want to check on you, see how you do. I want to hear your voice. I want to put my eyes on you. You know. 'Cause I'm making fun, but I do the same thing.
We're probably the last generation of people who ever talk to anybody on the phone. So, what about you? How do you stay engaged today?
um, part of it is just I sometimes I have to center myself. So one of the things I did this morning was to go on a power walk to kind of
Yeah,
clear my mind of the day and all those things that kind of end up being that kind of monkey brain kind of nonsense that we just kind of and by going on my walk in the morning, part of it's exhausting my body a little bit, but also my mind, so I can
yeah.
focus. And so that really helps me stay engaged. Otherwise, I might be doing monkey brain and in the middle of a conversation.
All right. All right. Well, it's always good. Hopefully, next time I'll be able to see you. It's like every third time I can see you.
Yes, yes. Well, we're getting there.
Hopefully.
Well, it's good to see you, Dr. Helm, and we'll talk
It's
soon, all
good to
right?
see you. All right. Talk to you next week.
All right, take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.